Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As a continuation of a Tuesday night advanced lecture, talking about openings. This game that I'm about to show you is from Texas Team Championship 1991 against a master named Carlos Lau. I was black in this game. I played Sicilian Dragon. When you play Sicilian Dragon, as you know, there are typically opposite side castlings. And they say the game does not, as the Russians say, there are only two results. There are no draws. Either white wins or black wins. It's sharp. Somebody will lose. So I was black. He played e4. I'm not a Sicilian player. For those of you who know me, French defense is my main line against e4, the number one choice against masters. But back then, I started playing with the Sicilian, and especially Sicilian Dragon, which is the sharpest. So I decided to go for Sicilian in this game. e4, c5, knight f3, d6. This makes it open Sicilian, d4. Almost always black takes, cd, knight takes, knight f6, knight c3, and g6. This move g6 makes it Sicilian Dragon, sub-variation. Of course, as you know, the reason they call it dragon is because of this pawn formation, which has the shape of a snake, the head, the tail.
Where's the wings?
No wings.
Chinese dragon.
White to play. White played the strongest setup against Sicilian Dragon. It's called Yugoslav attack. White bishop, one of them goes to e3, the other one goes to c4, both bearing down on black's king side. So after bishop e3, bishop g7, f3. The point of f3 is that he doesn't want to get harassed with a knight here at some point. Castles. Queen d2, knight c6. So far, so good. Now white has several continuations. Two main lines are bishop c4, and this move after bishop c4 it's called Yugoslav attack. Or castle in long, which on castle in long d5 is a good continuation for black. Here he played the strongest and the most ferocious line against bishop c4. Bishop d7. Bishop d7, if you look at some opening books like MCO, they give this move an exclam. Why such a fairly obvious move is an exclam? You see, in the old days, black used to play knight takes, bishop e6. But chess theoreticians over time, they found out that after bishop takes, pawn takes, this pawn is a problem for black, even though theoretically he opens the f file and all that. It's not that much of a consequence. So the point of bishop d7, the reason it's an exclam is twofold. One, if white takes on c6, he can take back with the bishop. Great bishop, good diagonal, even though there's a wall of pawns, but it's ineffective. Another point is for black to quickly finish up his queenside development with rook c8, and there's a veiled threat against the undefended bishop on c4. But this is all booked so far. So he castled long, and of course, there are several moves for black here. In the old days, black used to play queen a5 with the idea of rook f c8 and attack on the queen side. Queen c8 is playable, queen b8 is playable, rook b8 is playable. There are so many different choices here for black. But the most popular line is rook c8. Undefended bishop. So bishop b3, that's the standard. And black played knight e5. The point of knight e5 is to play knight c4 and win one of white's bishops for this knight. It's up to white which bishop he wants to give, but almost always this one. So when you have a pawns, central pawns in light squares, your dark square bishop is your good bishop, so you must hold on to that. So played knight e5, white to play. We're both following book moves. We're not thinking much. h4. Back then in 1991, if you looked at some opening books, they say knight c4 or h5. Both of these are perfectly playable, and these were the two main lines for black to play. Over years, these days, they say only h5 is the main move for black. And I like this move better because I didn't want white's pawn to go to h5, knight takes pawn g4, and he'll be forced opening the h file, hoping to checkmate me on the h file, which is not so simple, but this is how white usually continues. So if you look at any opening book these days, after h4, about the only move that they recommend for black is h5, to stop this pawn right there. So as you see, white is trying to build a pawn avalanche against black's king, but black mostly plays, he does piece play. So he played bishop g5. In 1991, this was a fairly new move. Karpov found a move in this position for black that changed the assessment of the position to equality. You know, black's first task in any opening is to equalize and neutralize white's advantage of the first move. Once he equalizes, then he can hope for initiative and a slight advantage. So this next move that black is about to play, the credit for that goes to Karpov. Anybody cares to guess what black should do here?
Let's guess.
It's a very anti-perceptive move. It's not the kind of move that I mean, there are a lot of things black could do. For example, b5 is playable, queen a5 is playable, a6 is playable. But there's a nice point to this black's next move.
E6.
e6 weakens this pawn for the rest of the game. These pawns usually don't move at all.
What about knight to c5? Knight to c4.
Knight to c4 is also playable. And white plays knight, bishop takes. Actually, black is hoping for that. Black is hoping white would go knight c4. He takes, rook takes. And white is slightly better in that position. This move is exclam move. It's chess theoreticians in the USSR. They gave it to Karpov, and Karpov had used it in his world championship match against Korchnoi. Rook c5. You don't see in very many openings that all of a sudden a major piece, a rook, come to the stage. Rooks usually stay in the corner, and they come to the end, to the game in mid game, late game, or in most often in end games. What is the point of rook c5? The point is that at some point, when white's attack becomes unstoppable with knight d5, rook is willing to sacrifice itself for that knight. In some variations, it's so dangerous, white just sack, and knight d5 would be a deadly move for black. So the point of his rook c5, one idea is to sacrifice itself for the knight that goes here. The second idea behind this rook move is to play b5 in one go. Instead of a6, b5, just b5 followed by a5, and to harass this bishop with a4 next. So when I played this move, which had just come out within months, my opponent looked at me. He didn't expect me to know this move. But back then, I used to read those informants. And with those informants, you knew what was going on around the world, the latest novelties, latest discoveries in openings. So I was really keeping up with the latest stuff then. White to play. White has at least 4 or 5 different good moves here. King b1 is at the highest level what they play. Just as a matter of principle, get the king off the dangerous c file. Rook g1 is another. Rook h e1 is another. Rook h f1 is another. g4 is another. So there are so many choices that white has. My opponent played rook h f1. I had never had this position as black. This was the first time. As a matter of fact, I never had it after this game either. This was the only time that I ever had this position as black with rook coming to h1. I've had this position with rook coming to g1, this rook coming to e1, or even g4. I've had those at least a dozen times. But rook h f1, what could possibly be the point of this move? Yeah, or even f4 in one go.
Yeah, but that knight's going to go to g4.
Right, creates a big hole in here. Oh, since this square is mine, I could, basically white is trying to ram this f pawn all the way to here and take here, and black cannot take back, right? So that's his idea, to advance the f pawn all the way. So after rook 8 f1, in situations like this where there are opposite side castlings, you must have the initiative attacking your opponent's king. And that often comes with pawn avalanches. He's prepared to do with his f4, f5, and I cannot get behind. You cannot blink in this position. So I play b5. Now it becomes a rat race. It's a question of who gets there first. He played f4. Expected, right? But of course, the drawback to rook h1, which has gone under clouds, by the way, since then, is that it gives this square to black for the rest of the game. And that means white will never have anything successful on the g and h files. And this cannot be dangerous, because once I block this bishop, which I did, this bishop has nothing to do on this diagonal anymore. Or I could even play king h7 if necessary at some point, get off the dangerous diagonal. So I wasn't worried about this. I played knight c4. And usually white takes, but he played queen d3. You see, he got this bishop on e3 away all the way to here, and he got queen e3. So he is not giving up anything for that knight. Is black to play now? So the battle lines are drawn. Black is attacking on the queen side, where white's king is living, and white is attacking on the king side. So queen b6. And he played bishop takes f6. The main point of bishop takes f6 is to get this knight to d5 next. So I played bishop takes f6, and this is the variation that I was talking to you guys earlier. And now knight d5, forking the queen and a bishop, and of course if the queen goes away, knight takes bishop, pawn takes, and this pawn is horribly weak.
So now rook takes knight.
IQP. Now I decided to give up the rook for the knight.
I guess those were
Rook takes d5. So black gives white a full exchange, but now black has his dark square bishop, and white doesn't have his dark square bishop. In a situation like this, you could say black will never get mated. And these squares are also in black's control for the moment. So now the game is going on. Black has sacrificed a full exchange, and he has little compensation for the moment. Is black to play now?
No, it's white.
Rook takes, pawn takes.
So why can't you? Oh.
It's black's move. So piece optimization. This is mid game. Bishop g4. So he has to make a decision with this rook.
Well, then he loses the knight back.
Exactly. What is he going to do? He can't afford to move the rook away because this drops. And he can't afford to keep it here. He can't afford to go here. Knight takes. So right there, immediately, I will get my exchange back. The alternative is to play knight f3, and this has its problem too. What's the problem with knight back to f3?
That b2.
Knight takes b2, and I get my exchange back and extra pawn. That would be my profit. So in the game, he figured he can't afford to move the rook away. He plays c3, defending the knight one more time, and closing the diagonal to my bishop. So the first move that came to my mind is just get my exchange back. Bishop takes g4, rook or queen takes. Well, not queen because of knight fork. He takes with the rook probably. But then I thought of something else. I figured if I play bishop takes, how does he recapture?
Maybe with the queen, he's up the exchange. He wants to trade.
Right. So I took the bishop first.
Or the knight.
Now, what happens if he takes with the pawn?
Bishop takes rook, I guess.
Right, that's what I had in mind. But he played queen takes. So see, the point is, I want to keep this bishop here. I don't want to give up this bishop for a rook. I feel like this bishop minor piece is better than a rook. I want to take his rook with a knight rather than bishop. So, fork the rooks, knight e3. Sure enough, he traded queens. Queen takes, pawn takes. And what should he do? He's about to lose some material. So he played rook g1. He saved this one. And of course, now it's time to cash in. Bishop takes d1. The reason I took with the bishop, anybody has any idea why I took with the bishop instead of knight?
Force him to trade that.
Because it wins a pawn for me.
Oh, that d5
After
pawn.
bishop takes, this pawn drops. So I took with the bishop, and I played knight takes d5. And after this, now we can safely say that black has a won game. Typically with minor pieces, bishop is better than knight when there are pawns on both wings. But in this case, black is a solid pawn ahead, and there's no compensation for white. And because all the files are closed for white, only half open D and E files, all they have to do is guard this pawn. In the meantime, my rook from the half open A and C files, hoping to create some accidents. So, no, he played on. First things first, this pawn needs to be defended. Played g3. Good move. It's black to play. Sometimes when you're trying to make a move, find a move, you anticipate what your opponent's next good move is, and you deal with it. If you were white in this position, what would you do?
Bishop f3.
Bishop f3, perfect. So this is the move I'm expecting him to play, and it looks like a good move. So I made a move that in effect made bishop f3 impossible. To my surprise, he played, oh, it's black's move. Rook c8. With this move, bishop f3 is no good anymore. What's wrong with bishop f3?
Knight takes c3.
Exactly. We played anyways, and I'm a pawn up already, and I win a second pawn. Bishop takes f3. So the game is practically lost, but he played on. He moved the king, king d2, and I analyzed the position. I'm not a pawn grabber type of person, but I felt like
Take a2.
might as well take this and get away with it. Now, how many pawns black is ahead?
3.
3 pawns. That's a piece. He could have resigned here, but so you see, we are on move 27, and you could say the game is over at this point. But he played on. He played rook e1, and the move that I had in mind to play in a situation like this with dragon, you don't touch these pawns. But this is endgame, and there are so many pieces that are off the board. So now I didn't mind playing e6 because d5 is coming next and cutting off this bishop diagonal. So I played e6. He played active, rook e4, preventing my knight from escaping. He's trying to trap the knight. But this is a futile effort because
Rook c4.
he doesn't have any of these squares anyway, right?
You never did.
So I played d5. I realize how important it is for the king to participate in the ending, but I'm putting the question to this rook to see where it's going. So you play rook d4. Okay, it seems that for the moment there's not much that I can do. Of course, the moment I try to rescue this knight with, say, knight c1, then he plays rook b4, and of course my move is rook c5.
Why don't you play rook c4? Force trade the rooks.
Right, I could do that. What did I do? I did.
Oh, okay.
Rook c4. Obviously, he cannot go into this ending with 3 pawns down. So the alternative to trading is
Rook D3.
played. Now it's time for my knight to get back to the game. And with tempo. Knight B4. Like I said, the game is practically lost here, but he decided to play on, which is his right. Okay, he played Rook B3. Now I have to be careful not to have my rook trapped, because he's threatening this move next. And what do I do?
I don't know.
If I go here,
King up.
king where? E3 or C3?
I say C. No, can't go C3. E3.
What's wrong with C3?
Can't you check him?
Where?
It's C4. Then you can check him at A2 with the knight. Oh, but you'll take the rook. So that
And after this, he has several good continuations. One of them is bishop takes pawn.
Ooh.
So black is not very happy here. So here's the position. He just played Rook B3. This is here. Black to play here or decided to sacrifice a pawn that he could not take, actually. It's a sham sacrifice. Knight C6.
fork.
Knight takes pawn is no good. What's wrong with it?
Knight D4.
Knight D4, attacking 2 undefended pieces, and he would lose one of them. So Knight C6, he played bishop E2. Black to play, what should he do?
Throw in a check at D4.
I did. There's a famous Potzer saying. Potzers have their own quotations too.
Potzer sees the check. Potzer gives the check.
There you go. It's funny. Of all the people, Mitch was the one who knew that. Rook D4 check. He played King C2. Okay. Looks like a good safe square. Black to play and win. This is one of those moments that you say, I wish my rook were not here. Knight check, fork and everything. So let's move it out of the way with threat. Rook E4. And of course he saved it. Now here's my chance to simplify into a pawn ending. Knight D4 check. Everything comes off and black is 3 pawns up. Even his better king position doesn't help much with 3 pawns up.
King has to go to C3.
King did go to C3.
Knight takes rook.
Knight takes B3. And what's his move here?
Bishop takes rook.
He must do this. Bishop takes rook.
Pawn takes bishop.
Okay, this is where I have to evaluate and make sure I have the right continuation. Should I save the rook? And of course he will save the bishop and go into
Long endgame.
knight and 7 pawn ending against bishop and 4 pawns. You'll be surprised how effective bishop is in the ending, because it controls so many squares with pawns on both wings. So I figured pawn ending should be an easy win. So I took here, pawn takes, and of course king takes. Now if white is trying to win, what should he do? He should go after these pawns, take both of these and try to do something with this. But with this passer here, it's not so easy. So first things first, make sure the pawn is guarded. Now it's just a matter of bringing the king here, e5, and this 5 against 3 should have no problem winning. Again, he could have resigned right here, but he played on. King c3. He figured these 2 pawns are really like 1.
One big pawn.
And
Bishop.
but this still 5 to 3, that's too much.
Wait, what happened to
King c3. I'll play king f8. King d4. You see, I'm trying to time it so that king e7, and if he try to get the opposition here,
Push B4.
b4, and his only pawn move, reasonable pawn move, is b3. Then I play b5, and he has to retreat. And when he goes back, I go forward. So here, he played b3. I'm sorry, the king is still on d4. Instead of the king maneuver, he played the b3 move. Well, not b4, obviously, because king c4. But after king d6, he will have to retreat more back. And doesn't matter which one of these squares he goes to. I'll play e5 next. And the game was over at this point.
Wait, what happens if one of those three, yellow pawns over those Kobe 5-on-1?
These are not yellow, they're white. You need better glasses. Just kidding.
They look yellow.
These pawns, well, as soon as he push either one of these, I could take. So that's no good. The position is just hopeless. One of the easiest endings to win or to go to when you're a pawn up, or 2 or 3 in this case, is pawn ending. But let's assume in this position it is black to play. Well, obviously this, even this move is perfectly playable. You see, after take king here, no, not yet. If it's black's move, this is the move. And if he goes king c4, then e5, so this ending is winning. So what if it's white's move in this position? If he doesn't want to retreat, he has to play this move. And in this case, this is an exclam. This is the position, kind of position that he was hoping for, to stop both of these pawns and create a position, opposition with black to move. This is, but even this position is winning for black. Here comes e5 exclam.
Pawn takes.
After pawn takes,
King
king e6, he's in Zugzwang again. He doesn't have any pawn moves, and if king retreats, doesn't matter which one of these squares, king takes pawn, easy win with all these extra pawns. So if you have any material advantage, king and pawn endings are the easiest ones to transpose to in the ending and win. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it.